So, you picked acceleration vehicles. You were objectively trolling. Maybe it was for a challenge, or maybe it was for the memes. You might be wondering, how can you make this work? Lucky for you, we know which vehicles to avoid using in the class. I'm Stella Joker, I'm here with Metal once again, and we're going to be going over the worst acceleration-based vehicles in the game.
I can't believe it!
To start us off, the categories. We have worst acceleration vehicle for level 4, worst acceleration vehicle for bagging, worst acceleration vehicle for quick recovery, and the general worst acceleration vehicle. To start this off, I would like to say one thing. We made a mistake in the first video with level 4. We accidentally spoke on which vehicle would be the worst to use level 4 with. Unfortunately, that is not what we meant to do. We meant to actually state which vehicle is the worst to use in the level 4 meta and against people that are using the level 4 gadget set. That is on us. This video will be specifically covering which acceleration vehicle is the worst to use within the level 4 meta, because if you try to use any of these vehicles with the level 4 build, you're just objectively trolling and you're trying to really test yourself and try to show off how good you are at the game.
Right, oh good sir. And also, with every other category right here, we have bagging, quick recovery, and general worst. To catch more details on it, we have a link to our first video pinned right here. But to give you a quick overview and everything, right? We have bagging, which is basically staying far in the back to use the economy of the items to get powerful use out of it. Quick recovery, which is basically the fastest way you can get hit and get back into the race. And then we will figure out which vehicle here in this category is the actual factual worst.
Now, we have a lot of stats to go over, but let's just state this real quick. Acceleration vehicles are unfortunately the worst vehicle type in the game.
Currently.
Yeah, currently. And one thing I want to go over is, just like in the first video, I would like to go over Shy Guy's criteria for the level 4 stats and what makes like each vehicle so good with level 4. And one of the big things he stated about why level 4 is so good and what stats are so bad with level 4 is power is arguably the worst stat with level 4. And to go into the stats of each of the vehicles, we see that acceleration has its third highest stat being power, so a lot of these vehicles aren't going to get a lot of value against the level 4 meta. So to quickly preface, we have Whirlwind Sport, Jumbo Rage, Hyper Scorpion, Cyber Spear, the Pawn Caliber, Long Stinger, Radical Fours, Racing Buggy, and Giganto Liner. Metal, what of the vehicles in the level 4 meta would you say is probably the worst to use against people that are using level 4?
Oh, this is already difficult because, one, I gotta preface this right here. I love the look of all the acceleration cars right here. They look so great. But on that same note here, all their stats are so wonky to work with to counter level 4. So this right here, you already gave me a tough task at the beginning of the video too. So to counter level 4, the worst one out of here? Yeesh, good sir. Man, you are throwing me into the pit right for this one. I'm gonna have to go with a possible Giganto Liner on this one.
Not a bad option. I would actually like to argue off the rip. I think it's ironic. Like, Eggpon, not arguably the worst acceleration character by stats, but I would like to argue that his vehicle is probably one of the worst acceleration vehicles to verse level 4. Now, his power is the lowest, so he's not wasting stats in power. The main reason I think it's actually really bad is because it's got the lowest speed stat, and to try to even contest level 4 builds, you have to have a pretty high speed stat. And because he's got the lowest speed stat in the category by far, it's going to be really hard for anyone to use Pawn Caliber and stay up with the level 4 builds.
You know, you make a fair argument because I did not even notice the speed stat right there. I was so busy looking at every other stat minus the speed one. That went right over my head. Nice catch.
Another vehicle I would also like to bring in contention for this is, I would like to say, there's not a lot of vehicles, unfortunately, there's not a lot of vehicles that actually have low speed and high power. I think the closest you're going to get is, funny enough, Jumbo Rage is probably going to be in contention as well as one of the worst vehicles. Again, it doesn't have the highest power in the class, unlike Radical Fours and Long Stinger, but it does have, it's part of the second lowest group of speed vehicles, because Long Stinger and Radical Fours have the highest speed in the category, whereas Hyper Scorpion and Jumbo Rage have the lowest, or the second lowest speed in the category next to Racing Buggy. But Jumbo Rage has higher power, lower handling, and lower boost than Hyper Scorpion and Racing Buggy, and it also has lower boost than Pawn Caliber, while having more power, less handling. And I think that also brings in contention for being the worst acceleration vehicle to use against people that are using level 4.
Which is weird to think because I'm pretty sure when they were making Zaz with his vehicle, I think they were trying to go for a hybrid aggressor build, but the stats are really wonky all over the place. This is the first time I'm actually seeing this.
It's very interesting to see that, like, genuinely. Like, the craziest part is, if you want my honest opinion of the vehicles that, like, the acceleration class has some of the most interesting designed vehicles in the game, and they're so cool, and yet Jumble Rage just has some of the most unfortunate stats, especially compared to a lot of these other vehicles. Yes, Pawn Caliber is definitely in contention for being one of the worst, but the fact that it has the highest boost stat and it has one of the highest handling stats is insane to think about. Like, genuinely, it's got low power, but for this kind of category against level 4, it actually might be better the fact that it has less power, so that way it's not brought in contention for being the worst vehicle to use within the level 4 metagame. But I think Jumble Rage is definitely going to be up there for me. It's going to be one of the main ones.
Well, I'm gonna bring this up right now, Joker, because I'm also looking at this right here. He's like, you bring up for Jumble Rage. I'm starting to see what the idea is now. That, yeah, right, power is one of their highest stats, because if you get hit, you want to have the high acceleration to get back up in the race, and also, say for example, you slow down for some reason, like going in the grass, you can catch back up. Ooh, this is gonna be really difficult to figure out right now. The worst of each category now. Still,
it's shocking because these are the worst vehicles in the game, unfortunately. Yet it's kind of funny because, like, trying to pick the worst of these vehicles, especially with, I know both me and you use acceleration vehicles and we enjoy using them, and we have a friend that also uses them, but I know one vehicle that he never uses, and I can tell you right now it's Jumble Rage, and there might be a good reason why he refuses to use Jumble Rage. Even if he's trying to meme, I don't think I've ever actually seen him use Jumble Rage personally.
after this video, I might just pick up Jumble Rage just to mess with them now.
Honestly, it wouldn't be a bad idea. I think Pawn Caliber, again, lowest speed in the class, but yet it has the highest boost simultaneously and higher handling, so it can take a lot of turns a lot better and get its drift boost up. And if you're trying to, like, do some sort of, like, mini snaking, like if you're really close to a level 3 and you need to just snake a line just a little bit to get that level 3 out, I feel like it's gonna be a lot easier with Pawn Caliber than Jumble Rage. I think that also is why I think Pawn Caliber is, like, it's probably going to be the second worst vehicle to use in the level 4 metagame, but I think Jumble Rage will beat it out just by a hair for being the worst vehicle in this metagame.
Allow me to interject right now, right? Because I have used the Pawn Caliber. I use like almost every character minus Jumble Rage with their canonized vehicles, right? And I can say this for certain: getting a level 1 drift off is absolutely horrendous. It is painful how slow it is to charge it up a level 1 is. God forbid you do try to do a level 2 or level 3.
But imagine trying to do that with Jumble Rage having worse handling and worse boost. If you already think Pawn Caliber is bad, think how much worse it is with Jumble Rage.
I don't even want to think about it.
Now, I would like to preface this. We could bring in contention Whirlwind Sport, and we could bring in Long Stinger. Now, these are also two vehicles that could be in contention for being the worst in the level 4 metagame because they both have higher power than both these other vehicles, but I think what differentiates them is the fact that they actually have much higher speed than Jumble Rage, and I think that makes it easier for them to fight back against the level 4 metagame, and the acceleration lets them get back up to that speed just fine. I know Jumble Rage has the highest acceleration next to Pawn Caliber and Whirlwind Sport.
Yes.
I think Whirlwind Sport the handling stat's going to be the one that's going to make it worse in general, because, like, you're not trying to boost with these vehicles. If you're trying to boost with these vehicles and pump drift boosts out and snaking, you're playing the vehicle class wrong, unfortunately, most of the time.
This class relies on slipstream.
It really does. And because of that, I actually think because Jumble Rage has lower speed, I think that might actually make it worse. But just like you said with Slipstream, it's so reliant on Slipstream, I actually think that makes it even more leaning towards why Pawn Caliber might be just objectively the worst vehicle in the class for versing level 4. I mean, think about it. You have less speed and you have less power. Even though the less power is nice, because you don't have wasted stats, I think the less speed might just be enough to push it into that category of you really shouldn't be using this in the level 4 metagame at all.
If anything, most of these vehicles here, especially Pawn Caliber, thrive in being a mid-pack runner, and then they basically pop at whatever items they have to steal first place last second. That's the best way you can play acceleration class.
Yeah, and I think with the fact that Pawn Caliber has the lowest speed, I think that actually makes it even worse as a mid-pack runner simultaneously. I think it makes it harder to do its job, and I think it makes it harder to even play in the level 4 metagame.
So, do we agree that Pawn Caliber is the worst to go against level 4?
I would say Pawn Caliber. I know Jumble Rage is really close in my opinion, but I think Jumble Rage having higher speed, it might just be enough to let it edge it out, and have Pawn Caliber be the worst vehicle to use in the level 4 metagame.
Unfortunately, Eggman, your greatest Batnik is also the worst driver too.
Alright, so we've now figured out worst acceleration vehicle to use in the level 4 metagame. What is the worst acceleration vehicle to use in the bagging metagame? Or the bagging builds?
Okay, so since we prefaced that they rely on slipstreaming to catch up and get most of their speed up, right? They can actually do something nutty with bagging.
And what might that be?
Well, because think about it, right? Because as I discussed in the last video with you, right? Level 4, bagging requires you to stay further back in the race, avoid items, get max rings, and proceed to hold on to the most powerful items in the game to steal a win. The fact that the downside here is that you can't take the sharpest of turns, nor can you charge boost easily. So the your item play has to be basically near perfect.
And that's very fair, honestly. I mean, especially because we're talking about the stats. We want to have the highest speed, the highest acceleration, the highest power stat you can get to make bagging work. Because if you're relying on slipstream, if you're going to get hit constantly, having low acceleration and low power is just automatically going to make it tough for you. And then since you don't want to rely on boosting, I actually think the more boost stat you have, the worse your vehicle is going to be for bagging, because you can't slipstream. You don't want to be snake slipstreaming. You just want to be straight slipstreaming.
Exactly. And I see two vehicles on this current list right here that are possibly available for the chopping block right now.
I would like to say, I'm assuming one of them is going to be Racing Buggy.
Correct. The other one will be Hyper Scorpion.
Ooh, very good choice as well, in my opinion. I think in this scenario, so since we're considering how each vehicle plays against bagging, what makes Hyper Scorpion and Racing Buggy in contention? Like, which one do you think would slightly edge out the other? Because I think the handling stat being slightly higher on Racing Buggy might allow it to be barely able to overtake from the silver to the gold medal as the loser, because I feel like that handling isn't going to come into consideration, and the fact that it has less acceleration is going to really harm the vehicle. Granted, having less points in a stat and you're able to overcome a soft cap is going to matter more in the long term. So having 30 handling might actually be better because you hit that soft cap guaranteed, whereas Hyper Scorpion doesn't hit a soft cap, and having 3 more points of acceleration when it's your best stat already is not going to really affect you nearly as much as having 3 points in a much lower stat.
You would be surprised, because with bagging right here, right? Because all you need is probably 1 or 2 gadget slots right here, and you can probably run any of the vehicle tuners, right, to fix out your stats. And I agree with your argument with the Racing Buggy having more handling, it will not save it, compared to Hyper Scorpion's 3 extra points in acceleration, of course. In my honest opinion, I think Hyper Scorpion's base stats, especially when a big match with a weird character combo, because in this case right now, Hyper Scorpion can just edge itself out just a tiny bit over Racing Buggy, because Racing Buggy, from personal builds I made with it, right, base vehicle, you can try as best as you can to make the build, like the turns, right, but we have tap turns, like ease off the gas turns, right, and then you can, what was the last one you mentioned last time?
So we have acceleration tapping, brake tapping, and then you have fully letting go of acceleration. You have snap drifting as well, which is a thing if you know how to use it, things of that nature. I think that's everything I've covered in the last video.
Yes, and with these vehicles, you can't snap drift. That's already off the table. But with brake trap acceleration for turns, I think Racing Buggy won't even make it that much. You just need something to go faster in straight lines, and since the Hyper Scorpion can pick up that speed right there off the get-go, it can edge it out and win in this race.
I honestly think it's really close, and I think the fact that having 3 more handling is just going to make Racing Buggy maybe slightly better or slightly worse just because of the handling tech that's in the game. I think it's just really tough to decide on the worst, because both these vehicles, I personally like Racing Buggy and I really love how it looks, but it's just, compared to the other vehicles in the class, it's just really rough. I would like to bring in contention, potentially, actually no, there's not really any other contention for this. I was thinking Pawn Caliber again, but again, we're trying to avoid double stacking in all these categories. So yeah, I think with that in mind, it's really tough. It's very close for me. I'm personally leaning on Racing Buggy being just barely better than Hyper Scorpion here, because it has more handling, and that more handling will help you take better turns, especially since you hit that next soft cap. Whereas with Hyper Scorpion base, it doesn't hit that next soft cap, and it actually just has some of the lowest stats in the class by far.
Yeah, because because if you get hit right here, like, you're gonna have way more of a stun time to get out of it compared to, like, example, Cyber Spear or any other vehicle in this class.
Yeah, again, having 3 more points in your highest stat, I think matters less than having 3 less points in your lowest stat, nearly. And I think that's where I think Hyper Scorpion just loses out more, is the fact that it has 3 less handling. So taking turns is going to be much worse. And since you have the lowest power in the class as well, I just really think that Hyper Scorpion is just not able to bag as well. Now, granted, we could bring Whirlwind Sport into the idea that it could be bad, but the fact that it has the highest acceleration, the highest power, and the highest speed in the class, and you're not trying to snake with this build, and you're not trying to boost with these vehicles, I think Whirlwind Sport arguably is just so much better than trying to use Hyper Scorpion, because the handling stat and the boost stat, since you're not snaking a lot, and you can use like acceleration tapping, letting off acceleration or the gas pedal as well, and just brake tapping, things of that nature, I just think it doesn't matter to have like that. It's not going to make that much of a difference at this point. I think all these vehicles are going to have a pretty even handling stat across the board because of those techs. And I think Racing Buggy having that 30 handling is what's going to make it feel better overall to use.
I mean, once again, right there, I know you because you're saying that because of your TT times and experience, right? I have vehicles that went down to 15 handling before, and I was able to still make the same turns, if not better than you in some occasions. Of course, then I was really being scuffed about those.
Don't forget, I also played 0 handling on supersonic speed, so I have some experience with running some of the lowest handling in the game. And it just honestly comes down to your lines. And I think with these vehicles, I think the fact that their handling is so close, even with it already being so low, I think Racing Buggy getting that extra handling is just going to allow it to be better than Hyper Scorpion here. And I think Hyper Scorpion will take the golden medal as the worst acceleration vehicle to use in a bagging setting.
I'm okay with it right now because they're both tied for stat wise. I just think the acceleration edges out over Racing Buggy. But if you believe turning can save it, I will concede on my argument right here.
I think the turning can save it. We can come back to this a little bit later after we put a vehicle in each of the 3 main categories before we get to the general worst. We'll come back and take another argument and take another crack at this set. But let's go to the worst acceleration vehicle with quick recovery.
Oh my days. This one right now is going to be absolutely crazy because with the buff in a quick recovery from the update, right? We could also talk about the buff they did also to the acceleration machine kit, which in this case, as we're talking about this class right now, oh, it is absolutely busted right now.
I think the acceleration machine kit, if in this scenario, I think the fact that you're already the highest acceleration class, the fact that the acceleration kit gives you 2 more like soft caps immediately. Now, granted, it does cause you to lose 20 speed, if I'm correct.
No, it doesn't.
Right?
No,
what does it lose?
It gives you 20 extra acceleration and it minus, I believe, 15 boost.
Is it boost? I thought it was speed for boost. Maybe I'm wrong.
No, it's boost.
So that in mind, if it's boost specifically, we could be wrong on this. I'll definitely have to check this out later.
No, wait, hold up. I got the stats right now. I wasn't sure if the numbers for boost, but it's boost. They're losing boost.
Since we know it's boost and it's confirmed, so let's put it this way: because acceleration kit is like old quick recovery and new quick recovery is just insane right now, it's probably arguable. It's already just so insanely good. The fact that you can stack a weaker version of the current quick recovery in patch 1.2, and acceleration kit has the old 1.1.2 quick recovery as its vehicle kit buff basically.
Yeah.
The fact that its vehicle kit buff is the old 1.1.2 quick recovery, and the fact that you're getting 20 more acceleration, that means the lower acceleration you have, the worse you're gonna be. And I think with that in mind, especially with quick recovery, you want the highest power and the highest acceleration you can get while having the highest speed possible. And I think this is where Racing Buggy actually loses out big time. I think Racing Buggy, by far, has the lowest power and the lowest acceleration while having the second lowest speed by like literally stat for stat with every other vehicle. And I think that is what makes Racing Buggy so bad here. Like, yeah, you can give 20 stats to all these other vehicles. The fact that Racing Buggy is just so much less on the stats that matter the most for quick recovery and using acceleration kit's version of quick recovery, I think that actually just makes it so bad. And I think this is where Racing Buggy would actually become worse than Hyper Scorpion. And I think Hyper Scorpion is just better because it has higher acceleration here. I think this is where like the wishy-washiness comes into play even more, because you could argue like Hyper Scorpion and Racing Buggy can literally be interchangeable for these last 2 categories, genuinely.
Yeah, every other character and vehicle combo they have right now, these acceleration cars, yeah, even though they don't get picked up as much because they're not meta relevant, is absolutely insane right now. The fact that we have to be limited to what we're able to use because of the stats of the vehicles. And Racing Buggy has to be the worst one for at least the quick recovery setup because it has lower everything else compared to, example, Hyper Scorpion.
Yeah, and like we can argue handling is going to be more important with the quick recovery build because you are going to be like a front to mid pack runner in some areas, and you're going to get hit a lot. But that's the thing, since you're getting hit so much, you want to have power and acceleration. Yes, the handling stat matters. I will say that it does matter, but I think because it's an acceleration build, and we know there's tech in the game that makes handling not nearly as important as it looks, especially if you have low handling, you can just being able to know how to take each of the turns and knowing the lines properly makes the handling stat not nearly as important as it looks for the quick recovery set. It's still very important, but Racing Buggy just has such bad stats for quick recovery, and just in general has the second lowest speed stat. I think it's just hard to argue Racing Buggy being any better than just the worst acceleration vehicle for quick recovery.
I can't argue with that. Respectfully, has to go to the worst one, which is crazy. That's one of your favorite vehicles too.
Oh, easily, it's one of my favorite vehicles. I use Racing Buggy parts because of the fact that it has good handling, and I love having at least hitting my handling soft caps constantly. And the fact that it has literally 10 handling per part, it just feels so nice. Now, again, we could go back and we could arguably change Hyper Scorpion and Racing Buggy between these two, but I think with bagging, you want to have better handling so you take your lines more consistently in general. So that way, in case you accidentally screw up, Racing Buggy will barely allow you to take better lines in case of a mess up. Whereas with the quick recovery set and the acceleration kit set with the mini quick recovery buff that it has, I think having less power and acceleration is where it really matters here. And I think Hyper Scorpion would win out because it has higher acceleration.
You make a fair argument. And also, you made an argument too back in the earlier backing section we had. The fact that these vehicles can be interchanged for the bagging set is testament to how we can be as players. But comparing it to the next set, which is just straight quick recovery, yeah, you made an excellent argument, especially with me arguing. I had to interject almost at all for this part right here. Racing Buggy is just really bad on this part right now.
It's definitely, Racing Buggy is definitely not a bad car if you're trying to, if you're planning on running, a ring gain set. I know we don't have this in here, but to talk about ring gain, if you're trying to run it with a ring gain build, because it has the higher boost stat and it has the highest handling stat, it allows you to take lines and get drifts off that these other acceleration vehicles really can't get off. Pawn Caliber and Hyper Scorpion are the second best in the category for trying to get any sort of drift boost off. So if we were talking about the a ring gain build with trying to take good drift lines or taking good turning lines with drifts involved, it really would be Racing Buggy is better. Racing Buggy feels like it's the vehicle meant for trying to min-max, having just enough speed to be able to have good drift boost while also being able to snake and do drift boost to some degree. That's what it feels like it was meant for and what it is meant for in general. But because we're running quick recovery and we are a mid-pack, this is more of a mid-pack style, the more times you get hit, the more you're gonna get pushed back, and I think Racing Buggy just doesn't have the stats to keep taking all that pressure.
And just trust me when I say this, you will get hit if you're staying in the mid-pack for the entire race, so you do need the power and the acceleration to recover quickly as possible and get back in there.
Oh, absolutely. If you didn't have the power and acceleration, I think you'd just be completely cooked for you. On to the general worst acceleration vehicle. Now,
oh no,
this is gonna be tough, because we have Pawn Caliber is technically arguably the worst bagging and level 4 vehicle. Hyper Scorpion and Racing Buggy are also in contention of being in 2 different tiers. So we need to just generalize the idea of, are there any other race acceleration vehicles that could be in contention for being generally worse? I know we touched up on the ring gain build, but I don't think any of the other acceleration vehicles actually come in contention, because the ring gain build is mainly a slipstream ring gain build where if you get hit, you can get right back up the speed and get all your rings right back immediately. I think having that higher speed and having, even if you have the lowest acceleration stat in the class, I don't think it matters too much, because that speed is going to translate more with slipstream.
You are correct, because catching up immediately with somebody will do with a slipstream, but will just boost up. Well, actually, because after you get hit and everything, right, you will just, if you catch a slipstream and a ring off anybody, your acceleration stat will just immediately kick in right there, and you'll be back from 100 to 200, 250 instantly. So to figure out who has the worst overall stats, just for a general vehicle point POV, is really difficult to call out right now.
It absolutely is. I think the main vehicles we can at least mark out as being not the worst in the class. I think Whirlwind Sport, Jumbo Rage, Long Stinger, and Radical Force, I think are the main 4 I would say are immediately off the list. And I would argue potentially Gigantoliner, and Cyber Spear get knocked off, but they're definitely in contention for bottom 5. I think the other three just have such good power stats, and they have other really solid stats that I think Gigantoliner and Cyber Spear are just missing out just barely when you're generalizing everything in like the culmination of the game.
Which is weird right now because Jumbo Rage is a nice middle ground if you want to look at all the stats right here. It's not the worst stats in the game, but it's also not the best stats in the game either because he caps out at 60 for acceleration, which is like something you want to focus in an acceleration build.
Especially in a ring gain build and a quick recovery build, like just being able to have more, and even mid just bagging, like if you get hit once, like having more acceleration will just immediately fix any issues for the most part, and it has good power for the most part. I think Gigantoliner and Cyber Spear I'm mainly putting here in contention only because they have 36 power and 54 acceleration on Cyber Spear and 57 on the Gigantoliner, but I think those two vehicles can get pushed out because their speed stat is just so much better, and it allows them to fill more roles overall, even with the worst handling that it has. I think the stats they do have is just good enough, and I think because they don't have dump stats into boost, which is arguably the worst acceleration or vehicle stat in the game, I think having less boost points makes it so much better.
So now the problem is basically we're going to be ending up with Hyper Scorpion, Racing Buggy, and Pawn Caliber as vehicle picks.
Yeah, and this is where it gets tough. So we know for a fact they have the lowest power, so they're automatically some of the worst vehicles in the game in terms of stats. Granted,
they have the best boost.
They have the best boost, which is ironic because that's not the stat that matters with the acceleration vehicles. And it's crazy to think about. Yeah, it is. Like we've come to know the game to be a snaking game, and mostly you want to run snake builds and things of that nature. You find a lot of success in builds that aren't just about snaking, and you can take just straight lines and slipstream. And that's the thing, because Hyper Scorpion, Racing Buggy, and Pawn Caliber have the lowest speed in the game. I know Jumbo Rage does too, but Jumbo Rage has more power and more acceleration, so it barely passes because it has less dumped stats in the boost.
Yeah, it gets a barely enough pass. It will get 4th place for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I think Jumbo Rage probably is like 4th. I think Cyber Spear and Gigantoliner are like 5th and 6th in that range, but I think Racing Buggy, Hyper Scorpion, and Pawn Caliber are definitely the bottom 3 in this game for acceleration vehicles at this time.
If you want my interjection right now, I think Pawn Caliber, for it having lower speed but capping out its acceleration, makes it get the 3rd place weapon for being the worst.
That's not a bad point. I would actually argue the fact that it has such low speed, I think it also makes it... I think Pawn Caliber would just be worse for bagging, specifically because bagging you want to be able to stay up with the pack to some degree. I think the fact that it has the lowest speed, you're not going to be able to catch up if you get too far behind, whereas I think with Hyper Scorpion and Racing Buggy, you barely have enough speed that you could, but the fact that it has higher acceleration, I would argue, does edge it out over those two easily. I don't think Pawn Caliber could ever be the worst when Racing Buggy and Hyper Scorpion are currently where they stand stat-wise, especially against all the other like builds and other things that are with the game. So I definitely see your argument with Pawn Caliber being 3rd. I think for me, I would put Pawn Caliber as the 2nd worst, mainly because its speed stat is so low.
Well, I have personal experience of playing in world matches, right, where I use Pawn Caliber online, with like full set and everything too, with the Egg Pawn. And also I use Egg Pawn with both Hyper Scorpion and Racing Buggy because I wanted to test something out earlier. When you start out the race, right, and you manage, and mind you, I can say this for certain, mind you, I am extremely lucky when it comes to the first 2 laps of the race. I usually don't get attacked, I usually get left alone, I can keep up with everybody just fine. I usually stay 1st to 3rd, maybe 4th for the entirety of the first 2 laps. Pawn Caliber, Hyper Scorpion, and Racing Buggy stats allow me to stay with the pack, especially with slipstreaming in mind. Tricks, anything else, drifting, it still lets me keep up. The problem is when it comes to the 3rd lap, and when everyone starts popping off with all their different items, if I get hit with any of these 3 vehicles, Pawn Caliber, surprisingly, with its high acceleration, lets me catch back up instantly with anybody.
Yeah, it's honestly, like, I can't really argue with that because I don't use Pawn Caliber a lot, but honestly, having that high acceleration, I can definitely say it's just hard to put this as the worst in the class. Like I said, I think for me, it's definitely maybe 2nd because of the speed stat, but from your personal experience, I'd rather weight that more heavily and take that into heavier consideration. So I'd say Pawn Caliber, you barely get a pass on being not the worst. You're definitely down there, unfortunately, unlike your owner, Egg Pawn himself. Sadly, you're one of the bottom 3. but at least you aren't the worst.
No, you're
However, that cannot be said for Racing Buggy and Hyper Scorpion, and I think, genuinely speaking, it pains me to say this because I love Racing Buggy, and I think it's one of the coolest looking vehicles in the game because I really love dune racing, and because I think that's what it's based off of is like drag car or dragster vehicles and dune racing vehicles, things of that nature. That's what it looks like to me.
That's exactly what the inspiration's from, actually.
And I think that's what makes me love it so much more because I love watching videos on it and I've participated in it myself and I very much enjoy it. So I would have to say, unfortunately, with a heavy heart, I think Racing Buggy just unfortunately has to be the general worst acceleration vehicle in the game. And it sucks to say that. It hurts me because it's just such a cool looking vehicle. It's awesome. It's very fun to use. But unfortunately, the acceleration stat, the power stat, and the wasted boost stat don't lie.
Unfortunately, this off-road buggy did not make the turn in time.
Unfortunately, if you are playing Racing Buggy, unfortunately, you probably are using the worst acceleration vehicle in the game. But that is our opinion as people that play in the higher level lobbies, people that have played with a lot of the vehicles in the game and a lot of the characters. I think all these vehicles are really fun. They're really cool looking. But unfortunately, there is one class that is unfortunately the worst in the game, and acceleration has been, by a huge majority of the player base, acceleration vehicle has unfortunately taken the crown as the worst class in the game for vehicle-wise. And it's a shame to say that.
And I can't wait for SEGA to update the game sooner or later. Maybe version 4, maybe version 5, we get an acceleration vehicle buff. Or a kit that actually fixes them properly. I'd like to see some people play some wild acceleration builds.
I think it'd be awesome to see some acceleration builds. Like, genuinely, these are some of the coolest cars, and it's just a shame that they're also some of the worst vehicles in the game by not only stats, but just from their hidden potential as well. Because you have vehicles like the power vehicle, which get bonuses, they can overcap on speed and like slipstreams, things of that nature.
Wait, Joker. Save that for later for the conversation for next time. We're going to be getting way off topic here, but let me interject one last thing. You Zaz players right now, right? I know what y'all doing right now, and I love the fact that you chose the one acceleration character, and maybe he used his own vehicle, and you make the funniest meme builds ever. I love you guys. I want to see more builds from you guys, and I would love to see you on the racetrack.
I'll be honest, I'm going to interject myself. I'm going to tell you right now, if I see a Zaz player in my game, I will go band for band with you. I will pick Zaz as well, and I'll do some funny stuff with you guys if I can. I will 100% pick Zaz, because I think that character is one of the funniest characters in the game. I love him. I don't play him often, but I think it's absolutely worth playing him. He's so funny. Anyways, guys, these are our picks for the worst vehicles for the acceleration class in the game. Again, it is unfortunate that this class is the worst in the game, and it has been unfortunately chosen by not only just us, but the masses as well have all decided that this is the worst class, and it's very hard to argue that it isn't when you have other vehicle classes in the game like E-Gear and power vehicles. That's another topic for another day. If you guys want to argue that if the Pawn Caliber, the Hyper Scorpion, or the Racing Buggy are better than where we placed them, here are the stats once again if you want to see these right at the end. I will say it's going to be very hard to argue Racing Buggy, Hyper Scorpion, or Pawn Caliber being in the bottom 3.
We'll see in the comments if you later on. We'll probably bring it up in the next video. Who knows?
Potentially. Hey guys, the Stella Joker in Post here. I'll try to make this quick, make it short and sweet. So, the Pawn Caliber is the worst acceleration vehicle to use against level 4, specifically because it has too much boost and it has too little speed. It just cannot get any drift boost off, and 39 speed is just abysmal, especially for a class of vehicle that wants to really utilize ring gain speed boost builds. Now, the worst acceleration vehicle for bagging and quick recovery is kind of interchangeable. It just depends. Do you want more acceleration or do you want more handling? It kind of depends. If you want more handling, then I would say Hyper Scorpion's worse. If you want more acceleration, then Racing Buggy's worse, but then it'd be vice versa for quick recovery in a sense. I think out of all the vehicles, it sucks to say this, but base Racing Buggy is kind of just the general worst, and this is mainly because Racing Buggy has too much boost, too little speed, way too little acceleration, and it just can't utilize its stats to the fullest based on any of the main builds you want to run with the acceleration class. The reason why this video took so long, if anyone's curious, this is not because of me being lazy or hating doing YouTube stuff. I've just been streaming a lot more, and I've also been very busy with school. I've also been trying to line a schedule up with Metal so we can go over the worst handling vehicle, the worst power vehicle, and the worst boost vehicle in the game based on their stats, but we've unfortunately haven't been able to do that, so I was trying to figure out what to do, why I wait for our schedules to align line, and I'm going to be releasing a couple videos related to TT and how to use tech outside of snap drifting to be able to take turns better. I know a lot of people may know some of the tech like acceleration tapping, brake tapping, letting go of acceleration, and redrift alignment. Now, I know redrift alignment sounds weird, but don't worry, it'll make more sense when I get a video out about it or if you've seen anything about it. But I have a lot of big plans for this channel and I have a lot of big plans going forward, so please stay tuned for some of the new stuff coming out soon. Again, I'm very sorry this took way longer than it was supposed to. It was completely unintentional, but I will say thank you guys all for the support. It's been amazing. I appreciate it so much, and I have been trying to make sure that everyone that comments, I try to speak with them or I try to comment back. I know sometimes I may miss a comment or two, and if I do, I'm so sorry about that. I don't mean to just be like, oh, I hate you. No, none of that. I really enjoy all you guys, everyone that's been supporting me. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. And if anyone has any conversation about why you think any of these vehicles here in this tier list are better than where we placed them, please comment down below. I will be super excited to see what your guys' thoughts are on each of these vehicles. But anyways, Post Estella has to head out. You guys have a great one. Thank you so much for all the support, and have yourselves a great day.